Welcome to the Revolution Roundtable, a discussion of life, faith, and scripture. We are people just like you, living real, often messy lives, and we're committed to helping each other live a little bit more like Jesus every day. Let's join the roundtable now. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the roundtable. So glad to have you with us this week, and so glad to be back this week. We actually took a week off last week. I was on vacation. We had some other stuff going on. So good to have you back with us. And friends, great to have you with us. I've got friends with me as always. This is my good friend, Chrissy Tuatavuki. Did I nail it?
You did.
I nailed it. All right.
Been practicing that one, haven't you?
Yes.
For like 2 years.
Chrissy Tuatavuki, self-described awesome person. And I agree.
Absolutely.
She's an awesome person.
100%.
Yeah. And then our friend Julie Forgy, member of the Revolution speaking team and also a resident awesome person. And my good buddy, Mr. Matt Pryfogel, as always, resident awesome guy.
Who decided to wear a polo today when everyone else is in a t-shirt.
Yeah, right?
Very
I love
true.
it. I love
Yeah.
it.
You came prepared.
I was
I was like, Matt, I didn't want Matt to feel alone this week. And so I didn't do any makeup.
I was getting ready
dressed
this
up.
morning and thought, we're doing a podcast. I'm going to grab a polo because everyone else looked great. But no, it's fine.
So I literally got back from out of town last night, and this is like what is clean. So that's what I'm wearing.
It's cool. Eventually we'll get into a rhythm and it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to do the female thing and start texting pictures
Yes.
prior.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is this cool? Is this going to work? Are we going to coordinate? Are we going to clash? But we don't want to make it look like we coordinated. Good luck with that.
Right.
I can 100% promise you that will not be a problem
Nope.
for Matt or I.
Nope.
Hey, buddy, what you wearing this
What are you
morning?
wearing? What's your outfit of the day, bro?
It's helpful. It's helpful.
Oh, man. Well, hey, glad to have you back with us. Like I said, it's been a couple of weeks. So we wrapped up at Revolution Church. We wrapped up this Wilder Life series a couple of weeks ago, and then we jumped into a new series. We're now 2 Sundays in called Faith in Practice. And if you haven't been joining us on Sundays, we'll post a link to that series below. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about some other stuff too. But I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about this Faith in Practice series, kind of where we've gone a little bit, and some of the ideas we've looked at. Like I said, we're 2 weeks in. And this last Sunday, we had our friend Mark Cleveland from the River Church in Fort Wayne join us and just talk a little bit more about this. You know, what is life, and why are we going into these disciplines, these ideas of things that will help us in life. And one of the cool things that he talked about a little bit was this idea that like life is an adventure, and there's more to that statement, but we'll get there. Yeah. So I was just kind of curious, like, man, what are some of the adventures you guys like have gone through in life? I mean, I'll start. We just did this week away, and it was kind of like a mini adventure. We went to Pennsylvania, which I've never been to before. I did not know Pennsylvania is like mostly small mountains.
Yeah.
Like news to me. I thought like still kind of the Midwest, still mostly farms, and it is a lot of farms, like dairy farms and corn and stuff. But like it's like
pleasantly surprising, isn't it?
It was very pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, you're like, dang.
And it's kind of like, you know, it kind of builds up. So like Indiana, if you've never been to Indiana, we're in north central Indiana, the middle of rural Indiana, and it is flat.
Say, look at your floor. Yeah. That's how flat it is.
That's how flat it is.
So
like we live in one of the hilliest areas because we're in a little valley between two rivers in Logansport, but really all of Indiana is just
until you get to southern Indiana, it's all just flat. Yeah.
And so as we're driving east, we go through Ohio where you start to get some hills, and then you get to like eastern Ohio and it's like hills, and then you like past Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, and you're like going up and down or through tunnels. We went through tunnels, which was the most exciting part of the adventure for my kids.
Right.
So I felt like an idiot because I didn't know that there were mountains in Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh yeah, the Appalachian Mountains go up.
Did you honk the horn every time you went into a tunnel?
We did not.
Oh.
Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah, it's a thing.
Wow. Now I feel like...
I literally grew up on the road and did not know that was a thing.
There you go.
So I'm the only one that ever honks the horn.
So why is that a thing?
Because it's a thing. It echoes.
Because it echoes?
Yeah.
I hate horns, though, with a passion.
They're a
Wow.
little
So that
aggressive.
I don't want like when people start...
Was not
Hate it.
expecting horn
Don't...
hate.
If you see me in a parking lot and you'd be like, hey, it's Julie. I want to like get her to do not honk your horn.
Not even a friendly.
So now you know.
There's no friendly boo-boo. It's all like,
Oh, there's aggressive honking and there's friendly honking.
Having
I've
said
never heard of
that,
friendly
You're going to
boo-boo.
get honked at all the time now.
I know, it's so
I'm sorry.
true. I shouldn't have revealed that about myself, but
Sorry,
with
not
a
sorry.
passion, I hate horns.
Wow.
My next door neighbor, or like she's across the street, she just before 8 o'clock and past 10:30, and it drives me nuts.
Just honks?
Yeah, but she wants her kids to come out, and
Oh.
instead of like getting out of the car and getting her kids, she honks. I'm like, it's very
I would
aggressive.
Move. I would
That's
move.
awesome.
I love being in cornfields for this reason.
There you go.
I
So
don't
we
hear
did not
neighbors
honk
honking.
our horn through the tunnels.
Okay.
We do usually, if we go over a bridge, we hold the ceiling up. That's like a thing. I don't know. You ever heard
Never heard of that one.
Yeah. Every time you go over a bridge, like over a river or something, you got to like push up on the ceiling. I don't know why. It doesn't make any logical sense, but
Okay.
it's something we do. So we did that. So anyway, we go through these mountains, and while we're there, we were there for my wife's like best friend's wedding. It was an awesome time. Congratulations again, Bethany and Brent, or Brenthany, I called them. That's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, but while we were there, we visited the Hershey Chocolate Factory, which was awesome and full of chocolate, clearly. But we also climbed a mountain. We did it was like a 3/4 mile hike with a 500-foot elevation change. So it was basically like the whole time.
With all three of your kids.
With all three of our kids.
Dang.
We went to the state park and we visited the like visitor's office, and we were like, yeah, we want to go on a hike. And what would you recommend? And they're like, definitely don't do this one because you won't be able to do it with your kids. And I was like, challenge accepted. Like, we're doing that one. Clearly. And they're like, you're definitely gonna have to carry your kids and all this stuff. It's way too hard. And they made it up perfectly fine. I carried our youngest for like maybe 50 feet on the way down because he slipped. But anyway, so and when we got to the top, of course, like it's one of the highest points in the region. Like you could just see for like, I don't know, 50, 60 miles in every direction. It was really cool.
Nice.
And then on the way back, we did the opposite, which confused my kids when I said we're going to do the opposite of climbing a mountain. But we went down into some like caverns in Ohio and explored underground, like 130 feet underground. So that was like a super fun adventure. And I don't know, I feel like with our kids, we're all about this idea of adventures and, big like Bilbo the Hobbit. I'm killing on an adventure.
Sure.
Trips and stuff.
That's
So
cool, man. That's cool.
something we talk about a lot. So what are some adventures?
So going
You
off
guys have had.
your hike adventure where you're like, oh yeah, that's the one I shouldn't do. I'm going to do it. My husband and I went on a very unplanned adventure. We are unplanned, like spontaneous adventures, and it gets us in trouble. So then we wait for several
That's the
years to
best
have
kind.
another
Yeah.
adventure.
That is
And
absolutely the best kind.
So this is one way I'll always remember, and I actually kind of do want to take my kids on this. When I was pregnant with our youngest, we left the kids with family and went to Tennessee. And it was great. And we're like, oh, we'll go see these waterfalls because everybody said, oh, you have to go this direction. So it was pretty full that day. So we ended up parking not in the parking lot at the trailhead. So we got on the trail just a little bit ahead before the sign that tells you like how long it's going to be and what to expect. And so we're like, oh, we get to this little waterfall. I'm like, oh, that's really pretty. Like, that's nice. And it was not short. And they're like, oh, no. The waterfall you're really going to see is further up. So we start going further up. I'm about 5 months pregnant at this time. We have zero water with us. And we just keep
course.
going. It ends up that it's a 6.2 mile trail.
Oh my God.
But we just keep going. Like, okay, it's got to be like close,
We'll get
right?
there eventually.
And we would pass people who have like walking sticks and
Sure.
real hiking boots. And we're like, oh, it's just around the corner. They're like, no, like you still have miles. I don't know why we didn't believe them. We just-
What do they know?
They're a
We
bunch of
just-
tryhards, man. They're
we're there. And I was like, so fun. It was beautiful. And I was just taken in and sucked in. And I think Kyle, was getting a little annoyed and his back was hurting on the incline. So he was kind of getting quiet and grumpy, but I was just laughing and we were still going. And so we finally get there, and I'll be 100% honest. Like, it was not as magnificent as that 3 mile
Not even
hike had
worth
built
it.
up in our head. I think it's like something like Rainbow Trail outside Gatlinburg, if you ever go.
Oh,
Some
man.
people we've talked to
Okay,
have been like,
yeah.
oh yeah, we know that one. We know that one. So then anyway, like it's
The
great.
infamous.
We're good. And then Kyle hits Mission Go for the way down. Mission Go. And he is like running down. But I'm now, again, pregnant, and the trip down is totally messing with my hip. So I literally have to call him back and be like, I need to put my hand on your shoulder. Like I have to. So it was so slow and miserable, and we did nothing but sit for 24 hours after that. But it was an adventure that now we laugh about a lot. He was not laughing then. I was laughing more out of just exhaustion. And it was a miracle that we didn't pass out because, again, no water. I was 5 months pregnant, so I can't believe that I didn't have to divert off the trail and take care of business. But that was just that unplanned adventure. But it's one we get to laugh about now.
Spontaneous adventures are the best. And if anyone who's ever played Mario Kart, I know you'll know this, the infamous Rainbow Road, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There you go. So
That's literally like one of the worst maps.
it's the hardest
It's
map.
always the worst
map.
one. Like it's always the
No tip.
My brother will get so enraged. That's for you, Jonathan, that he will punch. But the funny thing is that he's always the one that wins. So, what are you
nice.
mad about?
Yeah. He's mad he's not winning harder.
Yeah.
I'm going to lap everyone.
He's the winner because
they
he's
can see
invested.
me.
Yeah, he's invested.
They can see my taillights.
I
have to go
failed.
fast.
I failed this hard.
But hey, if you learn anything from that, it's always have water. I always have
There you
water.
go.
And I didn't bring my giant cup that says Bubba. That's the one thing I did because I knew we were going to be
True.
on the air. I didn't bring my giant Bubba cup
I crack
today.
up thinking about your story because I just imagine you and Kyle, you're wearing flip flops and
We did have tennis shoes.
And-
We were prepared for a short hike.
jeans, and everybody else is in super teched out hiking
Yeah,
gear.
I'll have to
And you
find
guys
a
are like,
picture.
"Why? We're
I'll have to find a picture at the end. We went in real optimistic. You know my husband. He's like, sure, smiling. We were not smiling at the end. We were exhausted. We were thirsty. We were hungry. It was miserable. But we can laugh about it now.
Yes.
My legs and my hips hurt for days after that. It was.
They hurt a little bit just thinking about it. Oh,
It really is. But now we do. We talk about we want to take our kids, and I'm not sure if we're there yet. Maybe if we prepared them, we could get all of them to. But now we know, and yeah.
And there's great hiking not terribly far from here, even though we're in the middle of flatland. If you go down to southern Indiana, there's some great hiking down
Yeah.
there. And-
France Park has some good trails.
Yeah, France Park has
Oh, my
great
kids
hiking.
love France Park.
Yeah, absolutely.
So awesome. So the other half of that sentence, life is an adventure, and I'm probably not going to say it the way he said it. I apologize, but life is an adventure, but really life is about all the time in between these adventures because these adventures are just small blips.
Most of life is lived in the gap.
There
And
you
that
go. Most of life is lived
non-adventurous,
in the gap
day to
between.
day, here we are, normal things.
Yeah, and so this series is really about looking at those gap times, in between the adventure, which is, kind of like what we talked about even a little bit in our last series, as we looked at that Exodus series in Wilder Life, it was all these crazy things happen and then a whole lot of nothing happens, So what is something that has stood out? We're just a couple weeks in. What's something that's kind of stood out to you guys so far, a couple weeks into this as we're looking at those gap times? Yeah.
All right, I'll start. One of the things that stood out from Mark's message in particular is he made a comment that when you're in that gap, the more you say yes to Jesus, the more the Holy Spirit can work in you and the more you could see transformation happen, the more you could see yourself getting to that next step, that next place. And that
awesome.
for some reason it hit and stuck with me. The more you say yes to Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. That's huge.
Yeah, I would even maybe kind of take that phrase a little further and say the more you say yes to Jesus, the more you'll find yourself in the adventure.
Yeah.
Because, you actually shared a story just a couple of weeks ago. You guys were in Chicago.
Yes.
And then on your way back, you stopped and visited this friend and ended up serving in this inner city.
Yeah. So that was one of our big adventures a couple weeks ago. We had a vacation, family wedding, similar, and we have a very good friend that she is the captain of the Salvation Army in Gary. And on our way back, we were like, let's spend the night with Amanda and we'll go to church with her. And she does this outreach thing she does. And not the best trip leading up to that because it poured down raining every day. And, Chicago loses its charm when it's pouring down rain.
Well, of course, everyone when you think about a trip to Chicago, Gary is definitely going to be
Gary
the highlight.
is not where you want to stop, man. It's you want to keep going. It's
roll them up, keep going.
And that's something we talked about on the way back, which I'll get to. But so we go to church, and she does this outreach thing where she will go to a apartment complex, a housing project, and she'll just start handing out ice cream and to kids. And cleaning supplies to adults and parents, and praying with people and all this stuff. And we got to go do that with her, and it was just the best thing. Like, it was just the best thing. So we had this really not great trip, and then it just ended on such a. That was
my water.
That was your bottle.
My water. Stay hydrated.
But it ended on this great.
It's closed. It's fine. It's not spilling.
This great high note because we took time to say yes, and we got to be the hands and feet, and it was
So
just
saying yes
awesome.
ended up being the adventure of the trip.
Yeah. I mean, because there's articles written about how bad Gary is, and that it's one of the worst cities in the United States, and it's just how desolate and how poor it is and how ran down it is, and we were just loving on people, and it was awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah. Julie, you were sharing a little bit about why you invited Chrissy to join us today. I mean, Chrissy, you've kind of had some cool say yes moments.
I have had a lot of say. Actually, my say yes moments stem from saying no moments. For a lot of time,
there's a deep truth right there. I think.
No, keep going.
There's been God was telling me for years to be in the worship with you guys, and I just was like, no, not gonna happen. It's just I was selfish and I didn't want to let that in, and I just said no for so long, and then once I finally said yes, it was just like perfect, and it just felt right. But it took God literally taking my voice away from me from the time I filled out the connection card until my audition with you.
Oh no!
It was gone. When I sang, that was the first time I sang.
Oh my gosh!
In months, I think.
But I think what I've loved seeing in you too is it wasn't just I finally filled out the connection card. You spent years. I mean, you shared years avoiding the connection card, but you weren't avoiding Jesus in that time. And John Mark Comer says following Jesus can be put into 3 simple goals, which is be with Jesus, become like Jesus, and do what he would have us do. And what I saw in Chrissy, and one of the things that I absolutely love watching continually, is that she takes those small steps. And it's not about doing all of it at once, but it's about what can I do right now. And so as a young mom, you got involved in a life group with other moms, and you were pretty quiet at the beginning, right? Just I don't know about these people. I didn't know how you felt about us, but then you grew in that, and then you fell in love with Jesus' word within that, I think, right? And so these small things that you did to be with Jesus and to be a part of that, I saw a transformation in you. And I don't know if you felt that and saw that, but I really feel like it's those small yeses to these things that I can do in this season that led to the big yeses.
Well, you actually said something last week that I was going to text you about it, and I just got too busy. But you said, find that person that you look up to and make them your friend so that you're, not copying them. You're just learning from them. And for me, that was you. And when I saw you that first week at
I know.
I'm not trying
It's
to be
a Kodak moment, y'all.
That was you, because I had just had Nora, and you had Raleigh and Adonai, and you were always so friendly, and I wasn't friendly. I'm not friendly. I am not friendly.
Awesome, but not friendly. No, it's not true. You're friendly with your friends. You're
just what people call resting bee face. And I'm shy.
Shy. I'll take shy, but
it's not a good combination. If you see me at church, I don't look friendly.
But she is. You can say hi to her.
But anyway, I saw you that first week. I had a 5-month-old. I was overwhelmed, and you were there. And I was like, okay, if Julie's here, it can't be that bad. So, yeah, I just fell in love with that one, and then we joined yours and got Tukey involved, which is, I had been nagging at him for months to join a life group.
We hooked him in.
Well, I think he really liked Kyle. He likes Matt Holcomb.
Yeah.
He made a friend there.
Which I love that just speaks to the power of the community, which Matt's going to be bringing us this week as we talk about that. So I love that, because there's so many times, so I was that person, but there's so many times where you've been that example, even though maybe you didn't feel like it or whatever. And I think that's where we have to just recognize the power of Jesus's transformation in us. When we take the time to do these things that maybe seem hard, these disciplines, these practices, or seem out of the ordinary or foreign. But when we take the time to do those, that transformation happens. And while Jesus can like automatically transform, and there's just this freedom from the sin or whatever struggle we're holding on to, more often than not, it's a gradual step-by-step transformation that when we're in the midst of it, we don't always see. But I believe that in that gap, when we commit to seeking him in that gap, that when that adventure comes, like that's when we see the fruit. That's when we see the transformation. Like, oh, I handled this differently than I would have before my time with Jesus.
Let me throw this in there too, because in the gap is also very safe, and it's very comforting, and it's very, like, I know what to expect. I know what this is going to do. Like, I know what's coming. I know I'm good. I'm fine. And then all of a sudden you're in your box, and you're fine in your box because you know what your box looks like. And, you know, but sometimes you're right. If you want to see real change, if you want to see transformation, you have got to get out of that box and do things you didn't think you would do, and say yes to certain things you never thought you'd say yes to.
Like, I have horrible anxiety, and every single step for me has not been any easier. Like, it's like full on panic mode a lot of the times. And like, honestly, sometimes you just have to panic through it, or it's just not going to happen.
Right.
Because like the first week we did mom's group, which was my very first life group here, I several times was like, maybe I should just stay home. I don't know any of them. Like, maybe I won't like they won't like me. Or,
right.
You know, so panic through it.
I actually love that. Panic through it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, we won't change. We won't grow. And we'll sit in the same spot and we'll wonder why I can't seem to connect with Jesus and with others. So that's good. Panic through it.
I think there's another cool nugget in your story that, I don't know, maybe a spoiler alert for what Matt might be talking about this coming Sunday, but I think sometimes saying yes could be offering someone else the opportunity to say yes.
Yes.
Like, Julie, you gave Chrissy the opportunity to say yes over and over and over, which has helped her say yes and been a big part of her story. And so I think there's some really cool stuff. You know, sometimes God wants us to be a part of that adventure. You know, he wants us to be a part of the story he's writing. And we talk about that all the time. So
Yeah, I think that's just another reminder that these practices are really meant for community. Like, yes, being alone with Jesus is important, but being in community with other people who are believers, who are chasing after him, who are being intentional, who are wanting to bring you along is so, so important.
Stop stealing my talk.
We're not stealing, we're just teasing, like, we're getting them pumped
Teaser
for
for
it.
next week.
We're pumped. I am. This is, like, community and fellowship is one of my heartbeats. And so I am excited for this. But I'm just
praying I do it justice for you, okay? Like, there's
will.
a lot
I'm
of pressure
confident.
here.
if you're listening, or if you haven't seen, again, we'll have the link to the series in the show notes. But our good buddy Matt here will be speaking this Sunday.
Yeah.
Excited to have him. He always does an awesome job. So
You're going to finish
make
up
sure you
and
tune
you're
that
going to
up.
be like, did I do it good enough, Julie?
Yeah.
Was it good enough for you?
Is there anything you want to hit on before we close?
I'm going to pray it out and be like, Julie, was that fine? We good? Can I?
I'm going to give you 5
All right.
stars. It's okay. So
bring
let's
a
jump
grading
off that
scale.
then. No,
A
stop. Stop. Let's jump off that then. Let's talk about, so these faith practices are anything we do, and it can look so different for each person. And you might enter in at a different point. Like Chrissy didn't enter in at serving, but for some people, serving might be like, man, I am a worker. Like, I love to do things. I love to be around people. I love to be helping. So that might be something that propels you into relationship with others, that then you meet somebody that is, loves the word of God and you get into diving into that, or loves, I don't know, silent retreats, not me, right? But you find these things that you can do to connect with Jesus. So I want to know from you guys, like, what is something that when you think like, oh man, I need to be with Jesus, or I need to do, I need to be with Jesus, I need to think like him. What is it that you do that can draw you into that mindset or that perspective real quick in your life? Because these are everyday things. These aren't things that we have to plan months for, or things that we have to set aside whole weekends for. These things are everyday things that we work in as parents, as
absolutely.
employees.
So I think a couple things for me. I think that time alone is really big for me. Because I have 3 kids and a wife, and so our house is always very noisy, which is great. I love our noisy house. I love our noisy family. But sometimes I just need time alone to have like the quiet time with God to like hear his voice. But the opposite is also true. Like I think sometimes our crazy family adventures are such important reminders of the truths that God has shown me over and over, and he uses these family adventures over and over to show them. As we're climbing up this mountain in Pennsylvania, and I'm watching my little boys, take these steps that are like the size of their body. It reminded me like that's me in life. Like I'm trying to take these steps that are bigger than my whole body, but God is like walking with me, and he's looking at me going like, oh, I'm so proud of you. And I'm right here with you. And, so yeah, I think that for me, like being able to see God and see his truth and see his love in those everyday situations is like one of the biggest things that's important to me, because otherwise it's easy to lose sight of, the mission. So, yeah.
I would, let me preface this by saying, when you're in ministry full time, it can be difficult. Maybe you want to chime in on this. It can be difficult to be fed.
It can be really difficult.
It can be really difficult to be fed. So we have to be very intentional about doing that and figuring out what's the best way and most, what's the best way how we get fed. Because on Sunday mornings, we can be in here hearing the talk, but a lot of times we're thinking about other things that we have to do to make church happen, and so for me, a lot of times, it's listening to a sermon podcast. It could be, nearly every one of my best friends is a pastor. And so either I need that many people in my life that are connected, in churches, but yeah, man, it can be really hard to get fed and be connected, but it has to be an intentionality. There has to be intentionality for me with prayer time. I was reminded that, we do a corporate prayer night here at Revolution and at our church, and I was part of that last night. I was remembered that, yeah, you need to do more of this. You need to do way more of this in your life, and things like that for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it's talking to my 6-year-old daughter, Nora.
That girl's brilliant.
If you know Nora, I taught that girl about Jesus initially, but she's teaching me about Jesus now. Like a couple weeks ago, we went, you gifted us that Bible a couple years ago, the
Jesus Storybook Bible.
Parents
gift,
it's awesome.
So good. Adults, if you struggle to understand, just pick yourself up the Jesus Storybook Bible and read it.
Bible.
No
Yeah.
shame
Yeah.
in reading that as your nighttime Bible reading. It's beautiful.
Our kids quote it all the time too.
We wore through that thing. We read it so many times, the binding fell apart. We had to get a new one. And I have 3 kids. So I kind of let it fall off a little bit, and then I took her to VBS, and she snitched on me. She snitched on me hard. She said, my mommy doesn't read the Bible to me anymore.
Anymore.
And that was a wake-up call.
She used to, but not anymore. Something changed.
I was like, well, to be fair.
That's incredible.
But yeah, talking to that girl will get you fired up. Reading the Bible with that girl, I learned more from her than, I'm sorry, probably you guys.
Don't be. There's beauty in children's faith.
Talk to a child.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, you're going to talk about this idea of community, but surround yourself with people who also want to talk about Jesus, right? Yeah. I don't know how many times I've been encouraged or even just reminded by another pastor or a friend. Even at this wedding, we were walking up to the rehearsal. I'm walking to the rehearsal with my kids. I had them all day while my wife was helping prep for the wedding and all this stuff. And I was just exhausted, right? Of being with the kids, trying to keep them entertained in this foreign land where I don't know anything about it. And so I'm walking up, and a friend of mine, friend who was there was like, "Oh, how are you doing?" I'm like, I'm fine. I'm really tired. I'm fine. He was like, "Oh man, grace, right? Just that you were able to spend this day with your kids and be here. Isn't that grace? Isn't that awesome?" And I was like, Like, yeah, obviously
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
like,
it is. It is. Yeah.
And I immediately felt like terrible inside a little bit, which I shouldn't have. But like, I was just like, yeah, like that's what grace is, right?
Right.
Like this that I was able to have this day with my kids and go to a chocolate factory and be exhausted with all the fun things that we had done. Like that is grace. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, surround yourself with people who love Jesus too and want to talk about Jesus because they'll wake you up sometimes.
Yeah. And honestly, I would say even if you're not completely on board with the whole Jesus thing, hang around some Jesus people anyway, because eventually you're going to be like, y'all are weird. Like you're weird in a good way. Like I think the Bible
Weird,
just
but I kind of
says,
like it.
but the Bible actually says peculiar. Like you're a peculiar bunch, right?
Indeed.
And there's something about it, man. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's when you see my prayer is that's when you see the genuineness
Yes.
of
Yeah.
followers of Jesus, that we're not perfect. People struggle constantly with a variety of things. But the point is we're willing to say that
Right.
and to allow Jesus to continually work on us. And that's grace too. Just that continued,
absolutely.
like this is not a one and done type of lifestyle. This is a
Right.
continual daily commitment
Yes.
to seeking Jesus, to learning how he lived, and then asking ourselves and him, how can I do that
Yeah.
here and now as a mom, as a leader
Yeah.
in a church, as a business owner, as a manager, as a fast food worker, employee? Like that's what we're called to do is to be Jesus, but it's not going to look like what it necessarily looked like exactly in the biography we read.
Well, I think
Jesus.
that's huge. And what's one of the coolest things, excuse me, sorry,
Might wanna
as you
take a drink of
explore the
water.
scriptures is none of the stories are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of these characters, some that we have very, very little detail on, some we have a lot of detail about their life, but like none of the stories are the same and none of our stories are going to be exactly the same. There are things that we will learn. And this is why we talk about the power of stories all the time. Like your story is really powerful
Yeah.
in encouraging someone else. But your story is not the same as anyone else's story. There might be things that are similar and things that you can learn from. Absolutely. But like your path is different. And that's why that's the exciting thing about it. That's the adventure aspect of it, is that you have a unique journey that God has for you. And so your way of doing and learning more about God's character or learning more about his love for you, your way of finding God in the crazy or in the mundane or in the gap, like it's not the wrong way. There's not just one right way of doing it.
Yes. It's going to be unique as you
Yeah.
are, as the masterpiece you created. Your way to connect with him is going to be unique too.
Absolutely. Really cool. Well, hey, great conversation, guys. Anything else you guys wanted to hit on before? I think we've kind of maybe hit a good wrap up moment.
Well, I guess
but-
I needed to get to work and make this next talk okay. So
Get to it, Matt.
I know there's so much pressure.
I'm excited for it. It's going to be great. It's going to be
It
great.
is. It will be fantastic. It always is. Well, hey guys, thanks so much for taking time to talk and hang out. And thank you guys for joining us. As always, if you enjoy this podcast, we'd love for you to share it with friends. You can leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. But we hope you'll continue to join us. Hit that subscribe button if you like. But again, the biggest thing you could do is just share this. Share this with a friend. Invite them into the conversation. So have a great one. We'll see you next time on the Roundtable. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Revolution Roundtable. If you enjoyed this conversation, we'd love it if you consider sharing this podcast with a friend or leave a review where you listen to your podcast. We'd also love to connect with you. Visit us at revolutioncc.org/roundtable and let us know what you thought of the episode. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.